Greetings, my friends, and welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George, and today I'm back a little bit later than intended, but I am back singing the praises and reviewing from my experience at Stonedead Festival 2024. Held on the August bank holiday weekend, Saturday 24th of August, at the Newark Showground, Newark-On-Trent, just outside Nottingham, and what a day it was. So yes, as I say, a little bit later than intended, but unfortunately, owing to a series of emergencies and various other factors, my review is a little bit later than planned. That said, better late than never, because it was a day that is certainly deserving a bit of praise and a full review anyway. So I did do a little bit of a pre-festival review you may have seen, where I was again singing the praises of Stonedead Festival and the particularly high, good impression, high expectation that was forged from my experiences at Stonedead 2023. Had a great time there. So, high expectations. The anticipation was high for 2024, certainly given the strength of the lineup. The day, of course, headlined by the mighty Saxon, NWOBHM Kings, and my absolute favourite band. We also had some choice additions there. We had KK's Priest, featuring former Judas Priest guitarist KK Downing and Tim Ripper Owens, to name a few. Absolutely fantastic. Across the day, we also had another couple of choice acts. We had Tail Gunner, an up and coming, I guess, new band, old traditional heavy metal style. Fantastic band. We also had Doro, the great Doro Pesch, a German metal queen, but featuring her own band, but also doing some other bits and pieces in her set list, which we'll talk more about in a moment. There was also Eclipse, I think Bonafide, Ugly Kid Joe, a few other things. But to be honest, the main draw for me was obviously Saxon, KK's Priest, Doro, and Tail Gunner. So that's where we begin. Shamefully, I arrived a little bit too late to catch Tail Gunner, and I was really, really disappointed about that. But owing to the awful traffic on the A1, I think it was, got stuck for a lot longer than expected. The rain was awful on the way up there. It was just all of the universal factors were against me there. Unfortunately, as we climbed out of the taxi, started speed walking towards the entrance, I could hear Crash Dive being played on the main stage, billowing out from the speakers, and I did feel a little bit of a sense of loss there. That I'd lost my opportunity to see Tail Gunner, and I was really saddened by that because I've been really looking forward to seeing Tail Gunner. Such a fantastic band on record that I just haven't had a chance to see live yet. Don't seem to do a lot of gigs around here in the sort of East Anglia, east of England, so it's a little bit of a shame, but I did manage to catch the final track of the set, which was a cover of Dio's Don't Talk to Strangers. So I always want to say Afraid to Shoot Strangers. It's not. That's Maiden. Don't Talk to Strangers. And that was great, but it would have been great to see the full Tail Gunner set. But the really good thing was that although I might have missed Tail Gunner, I was there in the arena in plenty of time to see some great bands, and also in time to beat the queues to the bar. Of course, for the next few hours, we did have a few bands that I wasn't necessarily all that familiar with and not massively interested by. So there was a little bit of an opportunity to explore around some cool stalls and, of course, the bar, where they did stock from Cameron's Brewery. We had the various different Motorhead themed beers. with road crew, which was delicious. You know, you're going to pay a little bit more than your average pub price, but hey, you're there, you're living it, you're enjoying yourself. Motorhead beer, perfect. There was also Overkill and another one, and I can't remember what the other Motorhead pint was, but great. Just soaking up the atmosphere. Very well-natured crowd, and you know, the demographic is that much older that, generally speaking, that there was not very much pushing and shoving going on like what you might get at some of the mega festivals like Download, where, yeah, I don't know, from my own experiences anyway, you do tend to get a little bit less consideration. That's not exclusive though, that's not everyone, just a few, you know, the minority. But had a few hours chilling out. There was one immense downpour at some point, and memory cannot quite pinpoint when that brief, short-lived, absolute torrential downpour was. Anyone that was there, you'll know the downpour that I'm talking about. It was somewhere maybe in the Eclipse set, I think, or Bonafide. I'm not sure. That said, it passed as quickly as it came, and soon enough, the battle jacket dried off. So the first band that I really got to see that I was looking forward to was Doro. So I wandered down to, you know, quite close to the front for that one. It was Doro Pesh, who I've never seen before. I don't have any of her albums, but I've heard Doro feature on so many different songs and albums from so many different bands. People from Monomath to Tankard and Motorhead and carry on, you know, the list goes on. But I was very excited to see Doro. So right down the front there, what we got was, I think it was around 40 minutes-ish. 40 minutes of very upbeat, very uplifting, power, heavy metal. I'm familiar with Doro's time in Warlock, although I don't have any of the Warlock albums either. It's on my list. But it was very good. I think the Doro's got a very good, capable, pretty strong band with some good names in it as well. So the musicianship was good. Doro sounded very good, and I will admit it was quite entertaining. The whole sort of stage get up, Doro went for a full sort of Rob Halford-esque leather and spikes kind of outfit there. Quite entertaining. All round, it was just a good set. Although I, as I say, didn't know much of the material. There are a few tracks I do recognise, so maybe I've heard them on Spotify, or maybe they are Warlock tracks, not sure. But overall, it was very good. It was very enjoyable. I thought it was a great stage performance. Really enjoyed it. So then we had, I believe, after Doro was Ugly Kid Joe. Now, I did mention on my little pre-Stonedead review that I'm not familiar with Ugly Kid Joe at all, and just not familiar with the songs. I hadn't really thought to put in the time and effort to get familiar with, but it was good. I think maybe not quite my cup of tea, to use a very British expression. You know, it was enjoyable enough, and certainly judging by the crowd's response, a lot of people absolutely loved it. They obviously went down a treat, and I thought they were good, but not really for me necessarily. Maybe I need to sit down and check them out on Spotify or something. Maybe give it a little bit more time and effort. But overall, I thought it was very entertaining, but it just didn't quite connect with me, and that's fine. I did, however, enjoy the inclusion of Motorhead's Ace of Spades cover that they did. That was good. But the rest of their set was enjoyable, but not quite for me. So I did seize the opportunity to, again, nip to the urinal, nip to the bar, and plonk myself back down on my little camping chair. So then we fast forward to the main event. After a brief interval, we were there, ready for KK's Priest. So by this point, me and my wife had managed to get down right to the front, a couple of rows of people back, but we were very keen on catching KK's Priest in full. My wife, a fan of Judas Priest, accompanied me to the Birmingham show earlier this year, where we saw Judas Priest in full, absolutely glorious, of course, accompanied by Saxon and Uriah Heep. That was great. So now it was almost like completing the jigsaw there. We'd seen Judas Priest, KK's Priest, you know, with the ex-members. It just had to be. And I will say that KK's Priest is a good band. You know, we've got two very good albums here. Very good heavy metal. I was not necessarily sure what to expect from their set because I anticipated, given that we've got KK Downing and Tim Ripper Owens, that we were going to have some Judas Priest covers. Let's face it, Priest is a little bit of a bigger name than KK's Priest. But I wasn't anticipating just how much Judas Priest there was in there and just how freaking good it was going to be. So there was the full stage aesthetics for KK's Priest. You know, the full band wearing pretty Judas Priest-esque stage get-up. Certainly KK, leather, spikes, very Priest. You know, KK's in his early 70s now, but that guy can still get around, he can still move, he can still shred like a young man. Absolutely fantastic. He was very, very captivating up there on stage. Tim Ripper Owens. I'm not necessarily all that familiar with Ripper because I don't know those two albums that he did with Judas Priest when Rob was out of the band for a while. More familiar with him in Iced Earth, of course. Much more familiar with those albums. And some of those albums are absolutely cracking. I know that he's done so much other stuff with so many other bands, but I'm not familiar with that. But I will say that he was fantastic. Again, very captivating. He can certainly deliver vocally live. And those Priest covers, he was doing very well. No, he's not Rob Halford. But Rob Halford's Rob Halford. Ripper Owens, he did a fantastic ripping version of those tracks. You know, absolute respect to the guy for getting up there and doing those Priest tracks so freaking well. Of course, he's no stranger to it because during his time, I'm sure that he had to get familiar with those tracks and be able to perform them live, I'm sure. But they only played a couple of tracks of their own original material, which was very interesting. So we had the set list kicked off with Hellfire Thunderbolt, which is such a ridiculously metal title from Sermons of the Sinner. We did also have the track Sermon of the Sinner somewhere in the set, can't quite recall, early on. The whole set was finished with Raise Your Fists, which was brilliant, a really good sort of brief encore. Early on, we also had Strike of the Viper and One More Shot at Glory from Sinner Rides Again, second album. So, you know, they started off their set with 3 or 4 original tracks. So that's kind of what I was anticipating they were going to keep up. But I was wrong, because after a few tracks, Tim commands of the crowd, "What's my name?" Of course, the whole crowd is chanting, except for a few that said Tim, "Ripper." That's right. The Ripper. So, Tim brings us into The Ripper, which I was gobsmacked that they were playing that absolute freaking Judas Priest classic from Sad Wings of Destiny, The Ripper. My God, my jaw nearly hit the freaking floor. I absolutely love Sad Wings of Destiny. It's one of my favourite Priest albums. The Ripper is one of my favourite Judas Priest tracks, certainly from the early years. Wow, that was amazing. Absolutely freaking fantastic. That was one of the highlights of the day for me. Absolutely freaking loved it. Then, as I say, they went through a succession of absolute belters. We then had Hell Patrol from Painkiller. We had loads of other hits and a few deep cuts as well. So we had the 2 covers that Judas Priest had made very famous in terms of Diamonds and Rust. And we had Green Manalishi in the Two-Pronged Crown. Obviously, we had Breaking the Law, because you just have to. Then we had a few other sort of Judas Priest classics thrown in there, and a few other bits and pieces. The one that I thought was maybe a little bit unnecessary was Before the Dawn, which some the crowd, great response, loved it. I did think there's a few other Judas Priest songs that I could think of that I would prefer to hear than Before the Dawn, that kind of deep cut from Killing Machine or Hellbent for Leather, depending on which side of the Atlantic you're on. Overall, it was fantastic, but that highlight for me was definitely The Ripper and Sinner. They, of course, had to do a cover of Sinner. And it was fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. They were so good. Musicianship was fantastic. Delivered the freaking goods. Ripper Owens sounded phenomenal. Very talented man indeed. And those Priest covers were an absolute delight, an absolute treat. But of course, the original tracks, they also came across really good. Sounded really, really strong. So, after KK's Priest, obviously, we were there for the highlight. We were there for the main event. Saxon. Again, we were right down the front for that. It was an hour and a half, hour 40-minute long set. A good length set. And I wasn't really sure what to expect. I said on my pre-Stonedead review that I was hoping that we were going to get some deep cuts, owing to the fact that they treated us to Sacrifice on the most recent tour, the Hellfire and Damnation tour. Prior to that, on Carpe Diem, we had The Thin Red Line. We also had Metalheads and various other ones. Some real deep cuts. So I was hoping for something a little bit more obscure. But also, I was aware that it's a festival. It's a rock festival predominantly with a lot of metal in there. And that they were probably going to be playing some more crowd-friendly tracks. Maybe. Didn't really know for sure. But, of course, Saxon did cover their latest album, Hellfire and Damnation, with a good representation. So they kicked off the set following the Brian Blessed narrated intro. Kicked off the set proper with the title track, Hellfire and Damnation, which sounded phenomenal. Saxon are one of the best bands to see live. They are such good value for money. Biff Byford is such a great singer, a great commanding frontman as well. He's got the presence, he's got the power, and he's got the freaking glory. Absolutely fantastic. You've got some truly fantastic musicians there. Nigel Glockler, absolute machine. That guy is mechanical behind the drum kit. You got Doug Scarrett, who is a phenomenal guitarist. Of course, he's now kind of stepped up to the foreground, stepped up to be the main man after the departure of Paul Quinn from the band, certainly in a live sense anyway, alongside Brian Tatler, Diamond Head Axeman, and Brian sounded like he was on fine flaming form, absolutely shredding like a maniac. And of course, the energetic battery that is Nibs Carter. That guy he is a driving force in himself, and his bass is just incredible. Absolutely fantastic. Such a killer band. And that's actually a good lineup shot there. So as I say, representing their new album, but then immediately taking you right back to one of the most iconic albums and one of the most iconic Saxon tracks, Motorcycle Man. An absolutely fantastic song. It was brilliant. Fantastic to hear it. I can't quite remember exactly the full set list order. I was trying to make a point of not actually looking it up, but it was fantastic to hear that, brand new track followed by a classic, an all-time Saxon classic, before they threw in Power and the Glory, which is the title track of the would this be, the 5th album? Absolutely fan-frickin-tastic. Absolutely love this album start to finish, and that is one of the heaviest Saxon songs from the early era. Certainly, yeah, I'd say from the early era, because by the next album, Crusader, things had taken a much more melodic and hard rock, sort of rock leaning. But the power and the glory, what an absolute treat. I know it is a track they do tend to give a bit of an airing to from time to time, but it was fantastic to hear that. Elsewhere in the set, because as I say, I can't quite recall the exact kind of sequence of events, but we of course had, from album number 3, Strong Arm of the Law, we had the title track, Strong Arm of the Law, but we also had Heavy Metal Thunder, which is, well, I know that certainly Saxon and certain pioneering thrash metal bands hold it in very high regard and consider it to be one of the first thrash metal songs or speed metal songs, and I would not disagree, because that is a fast and furious beast of a track. Absolutely love it. So chuffed to hear that. We also had the legendary Dallas 1PM, of course, from Strong Arm. So Strong Arm got a good representation there. Back to Wheels of Steel, of course. We did have the title track, and we had Strangers in the Night, or 747 Strangers in the Night. So you get the kind of vibe. This was very much a greatest hits set, which is no bad thing, in my opinion. We did, of course, have the title track from Denim and Leather, as well as the anthemic Never Surrender. This was just treat after treat. Absolutely fan-frickin-tastic. And as I mentioned, we had Power and the Glory, but then we also had the grand and epic and majestic The Eagle Has Landed, a sprawling masterpiece that sounded absolutely phenomenal. It was amazing. So as I mentioned, there was a few other kind of deep cuts, shall we say, a few rare gems. And one of them I was really pleased to finally hear, because I'm actually quite a big fan of the Innocence Is No Excuse album, which does unfortunately get overlooked. You know, it's an underrated album. But the big, not ballad, but certainly the big radio-friendly track here is Broken Heroes. And so many times I've seen Saxon live, and they have said, this was the 7th time, and they've said, is it going to be choice A, or is it going to be choice B, or is it going to be Broken Heroes? Generally, everyone's rooting for whatever else it is. It does seem to be the way, whether it's Eagle Has Landed or Crusader or something. I was so pleased that they finally played Broken Heroes, and it sounded amazing. You know, the whole crowd singing along, everyone's loving it. Absolutely fantastic. Mentioned Crusader, so they did play the title track, Crusader, towards the end of the set, and it was good. You know, enjoyable. Love that track. It's not a favourite album of mine, I will admit, but I think there's some good moments on Crusader, definitely. So that was a good feature, but the real gems were, well, I say the real gems, some of the other real gems were the other tracks that we got from Hellfire and Damnation. So they did luckily give us Madame Guillotine. Absolutely formidable track. I absolutely love that song. It's got a good groove, some really killer riffs there. Love it. And one of my favourite tracks from this album, the furious 1066. As soon as they started ripping into that, I was, again, my jaw hit the floor. I was so chuffed, because that's a song they didn't play when I saw them earlier on this year in Birmingham, but it's a real highlight. I would have been amazed if they had played Fire and Steel, but, you know, I'm not going to push it. I was so chuffed to finally hear 1066, of course, about the Battle of Hastings, and it was amazing. But the other choice moment there's too many choice moments, actually, I wouldn't even say, but another choice moment was the title track, Sacrifice. Once again, we got Sacrifice fast and thrashing and furious. Amazing. Absolutely fantastic. So what was noticeable is that there was no representation of Carpe Diem, nor Thunderbolt, nor Battering Ram. Obviously we've got Sacrifice, but then there was nothing prior to that back until Innocence is No Excuse. So, you know, it was very much a greatest hits set. And I think that's totally understandable given the crowd, given the demographic. You're going to have a lot more people there that were more familiar with the original early years, the original material. That said, for someone like me, who has obviously is much younger, got into Saxon much more recently, I loved hearing Hellfire and Damnation tracks and Sacrifice as well. That was a real treat. But if I was going to pick highlights from Saxon's set, obviously I'd say 1066. I'd also say Power and the Glory, Heavy Metal Thunder, and probably going to have to say the absolute beautiful track, which was the main kind of final piece encore track, Princess of the Night. Absolutely amazing. Probably my favourite moment of the whole freaking festival. Princess of the Night. Absolute classic. One of my favourite Saxon songs. Amazing. And it just closed out a perfect set. You know, Saxon were totally in their element up there. It was fantastic. It was perfect. They delivered a amazing set, start to finish. I don't really care that it was just kind of greatest hits. Fine by me, with a few treats thrown in. Not a problem. I would see Saxon again in a heartbeat. They are amazing. If you ever get a chance to see Saxon, do not pass it up, because you will not be disappointed. They are one of the best bands in metal and one of the best live bands as well. So overall, Stonedead 2024 was a fantastic day. Even though there was a few bands I wasn't particularly interested in, that's fine. You're not necessarily expecting to be interested in every band. Even though I did miss out on Tail Gunner as well, and the weather was a little bit up and down. It was freezing in the evening as well, which was interesting. So had to get rocking, so keep warm and stay alive. But it was fantastic. And I am absolutely amazed that Stonedead 2025 has already sold out. It is sold out, and I will admit that I am very disappointed because I really was hoping to be able to go. Unfortunately, due to the delay in having stuff going on in life and also trying to look at hotels and what have you, missed my opportunity and it was already sold out. So very disappointed about that, but you know, congratulations to anyone that did manage to get a ticket for Stonedead 2025, and I hope you have a fantastic time. You're in for a treat. Stonedead organisers, you've absolutely got it right. One of the best UK festivals, certainly one of the best festivals I've ever been to, and I've been to Download, Sonosphere, Ramblin' Man, that's the word, various other festivals, but this was absolutely the best. Merch-wise, I will show off these little treats. So merch, always an interesting one, because you're always expecting it to be very expensive, but not. So this, I did pick up for £20. This is the Saxon Hellfire and Damnation album cover shirt, with what I assumed was going to have the Stonedead date on the back of it. Tour dates on the back, European Tour 2024. Thought there was going to be Stonedead on there, but weirdly enough, there actually isn't. However, I didn't realise that until after I bought it, but not a problem, because it does include the dates from the March UK tour, where I was there in Birmingham. So I didn't buy a shirt in Birmingham because it was £40. So I waited a few months and I've got it half price. So I win. And it's a lovely shirt, amazing album cover. So we got that, and then also had to pick up this lovely gem. Again, 20 quid. Heavy Metal Thunder, as it says on the back here. But you've got the kind of Saxon knight, almost like a cross between a samurai and a crusader on the front there. but flying the Carpe Diem flag. Awesome. Freaking love it. You know, when do you get £20 shirts at gigs these days? You just don't. Most of the time it's 35, 40 quid or something crazy like that. But Saxon merch, KK's Priest, absolutely freaking loved it. Great day, absolutely fantastic. The beer was good. What's even more amazing is you get to bring in 4 of your own tins as well. So got through that in no time and then hit the bar. But my highlights of the day would definitely be KK's Priest and Saxon, as I'm sure it would be for a lot of people. Just delivered the goods. Absolutely loved it. Amazing time. Having a great laugh as well with my wife there. Really enjoyed it. We saw some fantastic bands. Incredible. So thank you very much, Stonedead 2024 and Stonedead organisers. You've got it right. And I do hope to be able to return Stonedead at some point in the near future. 2026 maybe? Who knows? I'll have to be quick. But thank you very much, my friends. Were you at Stonedead Festival? What did you think? How was your day? If you've never heard of Stonedead, do pay attention if you're here in the UK, because the lineups are good and it is an amazingly well organised festival. So maybe in future you'll be able to attend. Thank you very much for watching, my friends. Please do feel free to comment, interact. It's all welcome here. Do feel free to like, subscribe, share, comment. The support is very much appreciated, as always. Do check back soon for more reviews and recommendations of all the good, heavy things. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Stay frickin' heavy.